Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Pandora Hearts manga discussion. This one on volume number 16. An incredible, pivotal episode in this series. If you have not read it, stop watching this video. This video is filled with spoilers. The other rule of this video series, if you're brand new to it, I have not read ahead. So anything that I'm sort of talking about or wondering about, it's totally true because I have not read beyond this volume. Let's get into it because holy crap. Okay, so I mean we really just got to get right to it, okay? So last time in volume number 15, I said, I was starting to get this feeling that maybe Jack wasn't the most dependable character. And I mean, I certainly didn't really, I don't think I articulated it, and I don't even think I really thought it, that Jack was truly like the villain of the series per se. I just thought that maybe there was some fibbing going on there, or that maybe, his existence in Oz wasn't quite as, how shall we say, friendly as we thought. Not so much being haunted by Casper the Friendly Ghost. I did not see the extent of this. I did not see what happened. I did not foresee what happened when that friggin' crystal shattered and the head rolled out of it. Oh man, like everything just went upside down, and Gil and okay, so let's talk some specifics here. And I don't know if I'm going to try and summarize this whole volume because I think there's just so much to say about what was revealed in this. But I really liked the way that this volume was balanced, I guess, is probably one of the best things to say. Like, Mochizuki is constantly giving us these really great moments with our characters. And I love that she takes that time, that even though, we're hitting these incredible pivotal moments in this series and we're past even the halfway point, this whole first chapter of this volume, I mean, really almost up until just the last page or so, was about our characters reconnecting to each other and kind of getting over their stupidity with one another. We see Sharon and Break having this really great moment where Sharon just rips Break apart, like just tears into him, and he so sweetly ends up accepting it. And the two of them are just such a sweet couple, and I know that maybe they're not so much romantic. I mean, she still refers to him as Nissan, but their relationship is just so sweet, and the expressions that Mochizuki draws on them as they contemplate each other and as you can see that devotion to each other. I love how evocative her artwork is, that it doesn't have to go over the top, that in fact, most of her really, when things get very emotional, it's actually much softer, and you don't have quite as much of those hard, dark edges to things. I love that about the artwork in this series. Just the way she changes how she draws eyes, or just, like I said, softens the lines and the outlines. I mean, fabulous art, and again, just top notch on this one. And of course, we have Gil and Oz, that I just love how Alice has to be the one to point out, like, you guys are mental bromance for each other. Like, you are just both arguing the exact same crap because you each are just as worried and just as, care as much for the other as they do for you. But because of it, you're fighting like a bunch of morons. And it was really great to see Gil and Oz kind of, laugh and smile, and that warmth of companionship between the two of them, and that realization that, the crazy chain girl actually seems to have it more together to be able to tell them why they're being so stupid with each other. And we also get that moment where Oz tells Alice that, about Break and about what Oz saw in Cheshire Cat's dimension, and that Break destroyed her memories. I mean, that's sort of been a thing that's been dangling for a while. That's something that, it wasn't so much that it was unresolved, but I mean, we knew that eventually Oz was going to have to admit this to Alice, and it was going to be interesting to see what her reaction was. And again, you know, I like the fact that we don't use this as like a moment of melodrama. I mean, a lot of anime, a lot of manga would have gone over the top, and this would have been like some major melodrama in their relationship. And we would have gone on for a volume or two about it and then gotten back to the actual story or some such crap. But in reality, again, Mochizuki shows some great restraint and some really good storytelling and being truthful to her characters. And instead, Alice is like, whatever, it's gone. What do we do? We just go on. And that, she's sort of like, since you guys are so involved in the whole trying to figure out Sablier thing, and since it seems that my memories and a lot of who I was is tied to that, I'm just going to stick it out with you guys. But, if I check out a memory, if I said to, detect a memory, I'm going after it. That's going to be my priority. And, Oz's reaction is how, he thinks she's so strong. And then she thinks to herself as she's watching he and Gil fight that really the only reason she is that strong is because Oz has truly acknowledged her worth and her existence. And of course, the chapter has to end with finally Leo/Glenn Baskerville coming face to face with Oz. So as we go into chapter number 2 of this volume, a lot of it is taken up by Leo's backstory. And I think this was a really smart choice. I mean, because of what happens later on in this volume, I mean, who knows how long Leo's really going to be around. But, putting that aside until we get to that point, I thought that it was interesting and that it really informed why Leo had suddenly swung all this other way around, that where he was hardly even the man that Oz knew. In fact, Oz even remarks on that it seems like he's talking to a stranger, even though it's this person who looks like Leo, dresses like Leo, and his voice sounds like Leo. And at this point, we get to see that backstory and how Leo has existed as basically an outsider for his whole life because of the very differences having Glenn's soul within him causes. So the fact that his eyes are, somewhat more dazzling than the average person's, the fact that he sees those golden hues and the golden flashing and everything else. And it's his mother that encourages him to grow his bangs out and to try and hide certain aspects of himself. In a way, I guess, to try and help the kid fit in, because he says, he was bullied, he was always alone. And then he finds out basically that his mother is killed in town. He says that it was because she got caught between a fight, but then he also acknowledges other stories said that she was devoured by a monster. And we know that's probably true because, again, it's that whole involvement with chains thing that ended him up in Fianna's house. And he makes that comment that when those rumors grew enough that men showed up to take him away, and he realized that no one in the village said anything or would do anything to prevent them from taking him away. And what a lonely existence. And we find out that really that's how Leo lived up until the point where he meets Elliot. And that Elliot, for Leo, and I think this is kind of cool, right? Because there's obviously this symmetry that we have with with Leo and Oz and Glenn and Jack, right? So we have these two characters, and they're not as close friends, obviously, as what we have been led to believe that Jack and Glenn were. But there is that connection because of Elliot. And even Leo himself later acknowledges that, we're not really friends. We were just loosely tied to each other by an entity called Elliot that no longer exists. But it's interesting that in Leo's story, we find this boy who is so alone, and he grasps onto Elliot eventually because Elliot is so true to himself, and because Elliot is so determined and strong and sure, and all these things that Leo doesn't think that he is. And he grabs hold of Elliot, he says, because he wants to stand next to that light. That even if he himself is constantly in shadow, that at least he's close to that light. And we have that symmetry too when we take a look at, say, when Oz was first rescued by Elliot in the school from the Baskervilles. That whole conversation that Elliot has with Oz that sort of turns Oz around a little bit and sort of starts changing Oz's mindset towards this more sure and a bit more mature individual that we're seeing in these current volumes. It's almost the same thing that Elliot he was like this rock, if you wish, that we have these two characters that are so adrift, and they just also happen to be the two characters that possess the souls of these two other really central figures. And they've both grasped onto Elliot in a way to reaffirm their own existence and to try and find a part of themselves that they feel is missing, that they feel Elliot may be the key to. And now Elliot's gone, and so now we find these two characters trying to find a new relationship with each other without that medium. And you can see the loss on both sides, right? I mean, Oz is not as pronounced, obviously, because he still has Gil, he still has Alice, he still has a very large support system. But you can see where Leo is almost a prime example of what Oz could have been if Elliot were the only friend. Or you can almost see where this could be Oz if Gil were to die, right? That we have this individual who is embracing the darkest parts of the Baskerville legacy and sort of trying to shed everything that he was as Leo, because he is so lost as Leo without Elliot that he needs to become somebody else. And even Oz makes that comment when Leo is like, I want to destroy everything. I want to destroy you. I want to destroy the city. I'm going to destroy it all. And Oz is like, no, Leo, really what you're seeking to destroy is yourself. One other really key thing that is discussed in this chapter is we finally find out what the intention of the Abyss told Break was her one true wish. And, this is the thing that I've wondered about for a while, that I was like, how is it that Break seems so willing to betray so many different people to try and make the intention of the Abyss's wish, her desire, come true? What could he possibly, what could she possibly have said to him that would make him think that that's a good thing, fulfilling her intention and her desire, when so many other people are trying to do the exact opposite? They're trying to destroy her or control her and deny her her desire. And we find out that it is probably one of the simplest and most straightforward things, and that, I'm surprised I didn't give it more thought and come up with this myself, but she doesn't want to be the intention of the Abyss. She wants to be destroyed. She wants to be ended. She wants it to be over. And, in a way, like, I started thinking about this when, this is revealed. And first of all, I understood why now it was that Break was seeming so dedicated to this, because I think even he, in his brief moment in the Abyss, he understands that she's crazy. Like, no good can come from her being in control of this other realm, and that you can see the madness and the anger and all of these mixed emotions within her. You can see where these are becoming perversions of the powers of the Abyss, and that perhaps they are giving rise to chains that are otherworldly things that never should have existed and are corrupting people in ways that they were never intended. And so, and he says to Sharon, he's like, the reason I couldn't tell you or tell anybody was because Pandora's mission is to try and obtain the intention of the Abyss, to control it for their own worth. So for me to basically say, well, no, I'm trying to destroy her and deny you her, he's like, they would kill me. Like, that would be the end of it. And Sharon can't even argue with him. And so we start understanding, or at least, you know, I started understanding that where he was in this conflict, that he obviously couldn't side entirely with the Baskervilles, because I don't think even he knows exactly what the Baskervilles want, and I don't think that Break wants to try and achieve that goal the same way the Baskervilles did. Like the Baskervilles have made it seem that, you know, they required that whole tragedy of Sablier to try and, you know, get access to the abyss, and yet you can tell that Break's really not into killing innocent people. Like, that's just not his thing. So it's pretty clear that he wants to align with the Baskervilles. When he proposed that to them, it's clear that was like, you know what, I want to do the same thing you do. I want to destroy the intention of the abyss. But I think it was going to be that whole negotiations on how that was going to happen and how they were going to accomplish that was going to make or break that deal with each other. And so you understand a lot about, I think, Break now, and a lot about his motivations, and a lot about the things that he's been doing sort of back and forth and trying to figure this all out. And it really was just about him trying to grant her wish to be undone. Then moving along in this volume, because this video is going to go on forever, I don't get to like the really juicy parts. So let's just knock down what kind of stuff happens. So first of all, we have Glenn/Leo summoning Jabberwock. So obviously Jabberwocky was somewhere. I mean, I don't know where it was being held that he made that pact with it, but we're told, like, you know, Leo kind of faints a bit after using it, and Vincent's like, you know, you just made your contract with Jabberwock, you should be more careful. And we have Oz, you know, it's this resulting battle and chase and everything results with everybody ending up back at Pandora, where supposedly they've now found, or well, Duke Barma has said that there's another seal, another crystal, and they end up there. And so Oz and Alice decide to face off against Leo, who's with the Jabberwock. And Oz tells Gil, you know, you go ahead and with Sharon and you try to, you know, protect the seal. Because Oz is like, I'm going to be useless around the stupid thing anyway, so what the heck. And Oz summons the powers of the bee rabbit, slices Jabberwock's hand off. So, I mean, I guess we could argue here that, you know, maybe Jabberwock isn't as powerful because it's a brand new contract. But man, like, if Jabberwock's at full power, like, Oz supposedly is only using a bit of the bee rabbit's power, right? Remember, he is supposedly still has sort of a lock on it. And so he uses that power, cuts this thing's hand off with pretty much no effort at all. His Incuse moves forward, and when his Incuse moves forward, Echo, who is sort of been battling with Alice, makes the remark that Alice has become sort of transparent, that she can see through her. So there seems to be a tie directly with Alice and her existence in that Incuse. And, you know, we've discussed this before about how it's clear that this is not an obvious contractor relationship, that there's something different about their relationship with one another and how his Incuse works and everything else. And it's like, I almost think that his Incuse is almost like a lock, and that Alice is almost like a phantom, and that and you know, she's able to exist because his Incuse hasn't gone all the way around. The power isn't all within him yet. It's almost like, and I mean, again, like, this is just me pulling things out of my head, but it's almost like that someone took a power that sort of belonged to Oz, housed it in Alice and someone separate, and that it's only as Oz unlocks that Incuse that he takes more of the power back into himself, and as he does so, it's like undoing the existence of Alice. Now, we of course come to our grand reveals that everything we know is a friggin' lie. It's a lie. Oh, I shouldn't even be surprised. I mean, I have spent 2 videos talking about unreliable narrators and unreliable, like, authors and everything else. And I had said that, oh, I don't think Jack, I'm suspecting Jack may not be as quite legit as what he says, but holy crap. So we end up finding out that Jack's lied about damn near everything, that it's friggin' Glenn's head in the seal, that Jack is basically tries to take out Leo, and he's stabs him with the chain, and he's going to try and finish him off, and he's basically like, yeah, Glenn's power is just getting in my way, man, he's got to go. And then we find out, and I mean, this one made more sense to me. I was actually kind of glad that this happened. We find out that Gil was in fact the valet of Glenn, and that the reason that Gil's pretty much survived all this crap that really, let's face it, should have killed him, is that he's a flippin' Baskerville. And so now I sit here and I wonder to myself, so does that mean Vincent's a Baskerville? And I mean, does that, how does that even work? I mean, we know that Baskervilles aren't by blood. Baskervilles are chosen by the Abyss. So, I mean, it's entirely possible that something happened to Vincent and Gil on the street, and that, again, Lottie and Lottie and them and Lily, that they were, imbued with this, and they were summoned to the Baskervilles. And we find out that, yeah, Jack was the one who sliced Gil's back. And wow, and yeah, Glenn's head is the one that's in the seal. So it's Glenn's body that's been used as a seal, which means, and all this, and I mean, we haven't even gotten to the fact that Barma betrayed Duchess Rainsworth, stole her key, and was seeking to side with the Baskervilles. And he was basically like, because, yo, Pandora, you're done, and I just want Barma to continue, so I'm siding with the side that I think's going to win. Wow, I mean, betrayal and the whole story just thrown on its head. I mean, here's the thing, okay? The whole thing about Gil being Glenn's valet, that clears up a big question I had. And I don't know if I even mentioned it at one point, but it's been something that's been kind of eating at the back of my head. It's how the hell did they know that Gil was a suitable replacement for Glenn's body if he was with Jack all the time as a valet? Right? That was one thing that I kind of wondered. I was like, how would the Baskervilles even know? What would have just suddenly oh, there's a good suit, I'm going to use that skin suit. That was the one thing that I didn't get. But now, knowing that Gil was a Baskerville, imbued with and chosen by the Abyss, it would be very obvious why Glenn, who is the most infused with the energies of the Abyss and everything, would then be able to recognize that Gil was a suitable replacement for him. So that makes more sense in that context of the story. It also makes more sense why we saw Vincent and Gil, particularly Vincent, often alone without Jack on the grounds of the Baskervilles, where, Vincent has those discussions with Alice where she's like, Gil's going to be destroyed and everything else. How did she know them that well if they were only showing up with Jack who visited? And, so in a sense, this makes more sense to me. I understand this a bit better now. And it also would make sense why then Vincent and Gil were able to escape from the Abyss, and why they were able to survive in the Abyss until they escaped in that sort of time gap later, because they were Baskervilles. Because we know that the Baskervilles have the ability to traverse the Abyss. The only thing that the Intention has done that's made things all wonky for them is that they can't travel it easily, and they can't travel it basically instantaneously. You're given the impression that before they could have gone into the Abyss, traveled through the Abyss, and then come out, and it would have been like they only left a second ago. But obviously, we've seen with Lily, we've seen with, pretty much everybody who's gone into the Abyss that's a Baskerville, and even Brake, who went in and was able to leave by the allowance of the Intention, that years get messed up, that it's not clear anymore because of the chaos. And so now this makes perfect sense. It makes sense why Gil and Vincent were able to enter into the abyss and why they were able then to escape from the abyss without being harmed or being turned into chains themselves. So this makes sense now, right? Because they were Baskervilles. Good. I love it when things are like reveals, and even though they're kind of mind-blowing, it makes a lot of things make sense that we've already known. So that's awesome. But what the hell? I mean, friggin' Glenn's head is in the seal, which means that either somehow Duke Barma lied right from the get-go about what he read in the original Duke Barma's manuscripts, or that Duke Barma lied when he wrote in the manuscripts, or somehow Jack was able to plant that information or manipulated that information, or maybe it wasn't even Duke Barma, maybe it was the Duchess Barma. I mean, we saw that she was the one that seemed to be interfering with Vincent and, you know, saying things like teaching him how to open the abyss to save Gil. So we still don't know how that all worked, because now, remember, it was Duke Barma, at least that was the assumption, it's Duke Barma that made Gil all like, you know, kill anybody who threatens your master, blah, blah, blah. Well, now, is that going to kick in for him towards Leo? Because now that he knows? Like, that could change a lot there. And I mean, even Vincent says to him ahead of time, before like the realizations comes in, Vincent says to him, you know, you may not want to remember, because when you do, like, you may not keep standing where you are. And it's clear that, yeah, Vincent has pretty much remembered everything. And yet, of course, he didn't see fit to share any of that with Gil, I guess for obvious reasons, because at that point, Gil was already in the Vesalius house. And how do you reveal that to them? Oh, hey, by the way, the guy that you're saving there, yeah, his distant relative sliced your back open and betrayed our master. Yeah, I can see where that could cause some problems. But now everything's all warped. So we find out that Lacey, it was actually Jack that Lacey rescued. It was actually Jack who was dedicated to Lacey. And I think it's very real possibility then that it was Jack who wrote the music for Lacey. And I think that we could even say that like either Glenn composed it for Jack, or Jack composed it, and because he made a gift of it to Glenn or whatever, that's why Leo remembered it. It wasn't so much that Leo composed it, it was just like it was a memory of that tune. Which, I mean, clearly it was played often between the two of them. So, but I wonder if Lacey had a relationship then with Glenn as well. Like, I mean, was there a love triangle there? Like, I mean, and we see that Jack was like a street rat. So, I mean, does that mean that he was adopted into the Vesalius family? That he wasn't even truly a Vesalius? That was, maybe Lacey was a Vesalius and he was adopted into the household. She rescued him. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm going to find out when I read ahead. It says that the next arc is the past arc. And I think one of you guys said that too, that like the next volumes are all about what happened in the past. We're going to finally find out what exactly happened. So we know that Lacey was somehow sacrificed to the abyss. We know that Alice was then somehow connected to the intention of the abyss and kind of split personalitied. We know that the intention of the abyss wants to die, but she tells Brake to save her, to save Alice. And I found that kind of weird because Cheshire seems really intent on killing Alice, and so do a lot of the chains. So I almost wonder, like now that I'm saying this, I almost wonder if in that sense it's like a misplaced loyalty, right? That the intention of the abyss herself wants Alice to be saved, but because that might mean her own undoing. That's why Cheshire and the other chains are trying to stop Alice, destroy Alice, because they realize that if she's allowed to continue, that it could mean the end of the intention of the abyss. And because they're devoted to the intention, they're trying to save her by destroying Alice, even though it's contrary to what the intention wishes, right? So, I mean, there could be a lot more of a complicated relationship there. I'm not too sure. I mean, there's still that question that, you know, did Lacey give birth to the two girls that were then in the abyss, and one stayed in the abyss and the one was Alice outside of the abyss? Is Lacey the intention of the abyss? I don't even really know at this point. I guess we're going to find out. Yes, we will. So wow, yeah, a lot happened in this volume, and I know again I am missing things, because how can you possibly discuss everything here? And you know, again, everybody throw things in the comments, anything that I've missed, anything you want to discuss. There's just, yeah, I mean, my mind kind of boggles a bit as I go through all of this different things, but I just, I just see this whole thing with Jack. It's like such an unraveling of everything that we know. Like, how we know that Glenn still was involved in doing this whole tragedy of Sablier, but why was Jack there to stop him? Was he actually there to stop him because of the intention? He was trying to save the intention of the abyss. What happened afterwards? Because clearly it's not Jack's body that's in those seals. So where's Jack's body? And what the hell is Oz? And how is, there's still so much to try and figure out about all of this. So anyway, an amazing volume, and I was really surprised. The most surprising thing was friggin' Glenn's head coming out that friggin' seal. That just totally took me for a loop, and I loved even the looks of shock on pretty much everybody's faces, because everybody seemed pretty convinced that it should have been Jack's head. So I'll be back here again next week with volume number 17, and I guess that's the past arc. We're going to start getting some answers, I hope, because the suspense is killing me a little bit on these things. So again, thanks so much for watching. All the things that I've missed, I know I've missed stuff. Please put it in the comments. We can have a conversation there. Thanks again for hanging in for another long video. I'll be back next week. Until then, bye-bye for now.